My brothers and sisters, when we speak about reunion, when we speak about love that was lost and is now being restored, the first thing we need to understand is that Allah operates on His own timing, not ours. This is one of the most difficult truths for the human heart to accept, because we live in a world that conditions us to expect instant gratification. We want things now. If someone leaves, we want them back immediately. If a door closes, we want it opened instantly. But Allah says in the Quran, indeed, Allah does not hasten as you hasten. His wisdom is not bound by our impatience. His timing is perfect even when it feels unbearably delayed. Think about this. How many times in your life have you desperately wanted something, prayed for it, even cried for it, only to realize years later that had it come at that time, it would have broken you? Sometimes what feels like Allah holding back is actually Allah holding you up, preventing you from receiving something prematurely. If your partner had returned when your heart was not yet healed, when your faith was not yet steady, when your emotional maturity was still underdeveloped, would that relationship have survived, or would it have collapsed under the weight of unprepared soul? We underestimate the role of time in shaping us. Time is not an obstacle, it's an ingredient. Just as you cannot bake bread without waiting for the dough to rise, you cannot have a lasting union without waiting for Allah's timing to complete its work. When He delays, it is not rejection, it is preparation. He is preparing you, preparing them, preparing the circumstances around you so that when you finally meet again, the connection is not fragile, but firm. And here is where the psychological dimension comes in. Human beings suffer most not from the events of life, but from the stories they tell themselves about those events. If someone walks away, we immediately build a story. It's over forever. Allah doesn't care about me. I will never have love again. These stories magnify the pain, but they are not truths. The truth is, Allah sees what you do not see. He knows what you do not know. And sometimes the greatest act of faith is not doing more, but letting go, allowing His timing to unfold without forcing your own agenda. Philosophically, think of it like this. If Allah is truly the all-wise, then there can be no such thing as too late with Him. The concept of lateness only exists when we assume life is random, when we think outcomes depend solely on human effort. But if Allah is the one who reunites hearts, then what is destined for you will arrive at exactly the right moment, never a second earlier, never a second later. This realization lifts a tremendous burden. You no longer chase time. You walk with it. You no longer panic when things seem delayed. You trust that Allah is synchronizing your steps with the steps of the one meant for you. So the next time your heart is restless, yearning, asking, when will they come back? Why is it taking so long? Remind yourself, Allah's delay is not denial, it is design. It is His way of ensuring that when you are finally reunited, you are not the same broken souls who parted, but two individuals who have grown, who have healed, and who can now carry the responsibility of love with wisdom and strength. And if you truly want to align with His timing, then stop fighting it. Surrender your calendar to His decree, because He is never late, He is never early, He is always on time. So reflect on this tonight. Do you trust Allah's clock more than your own? Because if you do, then you will find peace in the waiting and joy in the reunion when it arrives. Patience and faith, two words we all know, but very few of us truly understand when life shakes us. It is easy to say, I have patience, when everything is going smoothly, when the heart is untested. But the real measure of patience is not in the absence of difficulty. It is in the middle of the storm, when your world feels like it is falling apart, when the person you love is absent, and you are left with nothing but silence. That is where patience is proven. That is where faith becomes either real or just a slogan on the tongue. Allah tells us in the Quran, indeed, Allah is with the patient. Think about that for a moment. The verse doesn't say, Allah will reward the patient later. It says He is with them, right now, in the waiting, in the heartbreak, in the uncertainty. This means that when you are struggling to endure the separation from your chosen partner, you are not abandoned. In fact, you are in divine company. Allah is closer to you in those moments than you can imagine. But here is the challenge. Will you recognize His presence, or will you drown in self-pity? Psychologically, patience is not passive. It is not sitting back, doing nothing, and suffering in silence. Patience is active endurance. It is the ability to feel the pain and still choose discipline over despair. It is choosing to pray even when your heart feels heavy, choosing to trust even when your mind is filled with doubts, choosing to remain upright when your emotions are pulling you into hopelessness. This is why patience is so closely tied to faith, because faith is not about controlling outcomes, it is about controlling your response to those outcomes. Let me put it another way, life will always test what you claim to believe. If you say, I believe Allah is the best of planners, then expect life to place you in situations where His plan doesn't match your plan. If you say, I have faith that Allah reunites hearts, then expect a season of waiting that feels unbearable. Why? Because faith that is never tested is faith that is never real. You cannot claim to have patience until you are forced to wait. You cannot claim to trust Allah until you have every reason to doubt. And here lies a profound wisdom. The test of patience is not designed to break you, it is designed to prepare you. Each day you endure with faith, you are building the emotional and spiritual muscles needed to sustain love when reunion finally happens. Because let's be honest, love is not just about meeting, it's about maintaining, and maintaining requires patience. If you cannot be patient in waiting, how will you be patient in marriage, where differences, challenges, and trials will surely come? Philosophically, patience connects you to the eternal. Most of us are enslaved by the immediate. We want relief now, love now, answers now, but patience lifts your perspective beyond the temporary. It forces you to see that everything you endure is a small chapter in a much bigger story written by Allah. When you zoom out and see life this way, you begin to realize that no waiting is wasted. Every tear shed in patience is an investment in a future joy that Allah Himself has promised. So, my brothers and sisters, do not confuse the silence of waiting with the absence of God. He is closer in those moments than in the moments of ease. And if you can anchor yourself in patience and faith now, you will find that when reunion comes, you are not the same fragile person who once doubted. You are stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected to Allah. Carry this truth with you. Patience is not just about getting through the delay. It is about becoming the kind of person who can handle the blessing when it finally arrives. And that is why patience and faith are not optional. They are the bridge to the reunion you seek. So ask yourself today, am I merely waiting, or am I waiting with faith? Because the difference between the two will determine not just how long you endure, but who you become when Allah finally reunites you with the one you love. One of the most fascinating aspects of how Allah works in our lives is the way He gives us signs, gentle reminders, subtle shifts, changes in circumstance that point us toward what is coming. When it comes to reunion with someone we love, many people overlook these signs because they are either too caught up in their own pain or too busy writing their own script for how things should unfold. But Allah in His wisdom often sends hints that reconciliation is near. The question is, do we have the insight and humility to notice them? Sometimes the sign is not external at all, it's internal. A softening of the heart, for example. You may have spent weeks, months, maybe years feeling bitterness towards someone, resenting the way they left, questioning why Allah allowed that pain. And suddenly, almost without explanation, you feel a shift. The anger is lighter, the resentment is no longer as sharp. You catch yourself remembering the good more than the bad. That inner shift is not random. It is Allah opening the door to forgiveness, preparing your heart for reunion. Other times, the sign is in the external world. A message arrives unexpectedly. A mutual friend mentions their name at a moment that feels too precise to be coincidence. Or perhaps your paths cross in ways you did not plan. These are not accidents, they are divine arrangements. Now, does that mean every message, every coincidence is a guarantee of reunion? No. But it does mean Allah is moving pieces in your life that you could never move yourself, nudging you to pay attention, to prepare, to trust. Psychologically, we must be careful here. Humans are prone to two extremes, either ignoring all signs and living in despair, or clinging obsessively to every little thing and calling it a sign. The truth lies in balance. Signs are not meant to enslave your mind, they are meant to encourage your faith. They are reminders that Allah is still active in your story, that your situation is not frozen in time. The heart that recognizes signs without becoming obsessed with them is the heart that is truly aligned with Allah's will. Philosophically, signs point us to a bigger truth about life, that nothing is random. What we call coincidence is actually providence. The Quran reminds us repeatedly that with every hardship comes ease, and not after, but with. That ease often appears in small signals along the way to remind us that our struggle is not permanent. If you pay attention to the signs, you will see that reunion often begins long before the actual meeting. It begins in the unseen shifts of the heart, in the quiet movements of destiny, in the realignment of paths that once diverged. But here is where self-awareness matters. Not every sign is about them. Sometimes the sign is about you. Maybe Allah is teaching you to let go of pride, to extend forgiveness, to heal wounds you've been carrying. Maybe the softening of your heart is not just preparation for reunion with another person, but reunion with yourself. The part of you that trusts Allah fully, that loves without fear, that believes without doubt. Only from that place of wholeness can you truly embrace another soul. So when you sense the signs, don't just rush to conclusions. Ask yourself, what is Allah teaching me through this? Is He telling me to reach out, or is He telling me to wait? Is He preparing me for their return, or is He preparing me to handle the reunion with grace when it does happen? Either way, the presence of signs means you are not forgotten. Your story is still being written. Remember this, signs are not guarantees, but they are reminders. They remind you that Allah has not abandoned you, that movement is happening behind the veil of the unseen, and that your role is to remain alert, patient, and faithful. So I leave you with this thought. When the signs appear, will you recognize them as divine whispers guiding your journey, or will you dismiss them as coincidences? Because how you see them will determine how prepared you are for the reunion when Allah finally brings it your way. If there is one thing that carries a believer through heartbreak, separation, and uncertainty, it is the power of turning back to Allah in dua. When you are longing for someone, when your heart aches for reunion, when you feel powerless to change the situation with your own hands, what do you have left? You have supplication. Dua is not just a ritual where you repeat words. It is the weapon of the believer, the lifeline of the broken, and the bridge between your weakness and Allah's infinite strength. We often underestimate what dua really is. It is not simply asking Allah for something. It is an act of surrender. When you raise your hands and pour out your heart, you are acknowledging, Ya Allah, I cannot do this on my own. I have reached my limit. I leave it to you. That surrender is where faith becomes real. Because in dua, you are no longer trying to control outcomes. You are entrusting outcomes to the one who already knows the unseen. Now, does that mean the moment you make dua, your partner will come knocking on your door? Not necessarily, and this is where many people struggle. They treat dua like a transaction. I asked, why hasn't it happened yet? But dua is not about bending Allah to your will. It is about aligning your heart with His will. The Prophet taught us that every dua is answered, sometimes with exactly what we ask for, sometimes with something better, and sometimes by averting a harm we did not even know was coming. So when you pray for reunion, trust that Allah hears every syllable, every whisper, every tear that falls, and He responds in the way that is most beneficial for you, even if it doesn't match your timeline. Psychologically, dua is also deeply healing. Modern psychology speaks of the power of expressive therapy, journaling, speaking, releasing emotions. But as believers, we have something greater, the ability to express our deepest wounds to the one who can actually do something about them. When you speak your fears, your longings, and your confusion to Allah, you release the burden of carrying them alone. You begin to feel lighter, calmer, more hopeful, because you are no longer trapped in the illusion that everything depends on you. There is also wisdom in how dua reshapes the heart. If you consistently pray for someone, your heart is purified from bitterness and filled with compassion. Even if that person hurt you, consistent dua softens the sharp edges of resentment and allows you to wish them well. And sometimes that purified love is exactly what Allah requires before He reunites you. Because how can a bond be healed if one heart is still poisoned by anger? Philosophically, dua connects you to the eternal perspective. You are reminded that the one you are speaking to is beyond time, beyond limitations. So while you are bound by minutes and months, He sees the full picture. This is why the Prophet encouraged us never to lose hope in dua, because the moment you give up is often the moment you were closest to the answer. Alongside dua, there is reliance, tawakkul. Reliance does not mean inaction. It means you tie your camel and then you trust Allah. In other words, you do what is within your capacity. Work on your character, mend your mistakes, improve your relationship with Allah, and then you stop obsessing over what is beyond your control. Tawakkul frees you from the anxiety of constantly asking, what if, when, how, and replaces it with the serenity of saying, if Allah wills, it will be, and if He wills otherwise, it is still best for me. So the next time you feel powerless, remember this: you are not powerless if you can still raise your hands. You are not abandoned if you can still whisper, Ya Allah. The dua you make in the quiet of the night, with tears streaming down your face, carries more weight than 1,000 plans of your own making. Reflect on this truth. Reunion with your partner is not secured by chasing, begging, or forcing. It is secured by hearts anchored in dua and trust. And the one who learns to rely on Allah never truly loses, no matter how the story unfolds. One of the hardest realities for us to accept is that sometimes Allah allows separation, not to destroy us, but to develop us. When two people are pulled apart, our immediate reaction is often grief, anger, or confusion. We ask, why would Allah allow this? Why would He let someone I love slip out of my life if He intends to bring them back? But if you step back and reflect, you begin to see that separation itself carries a purpose. It is not wasted time, it is part of the design. Think about it this way: every meaningful connection in life requires maturity, responsibility, and balance. Without those qualities, even the most beautiful love will collapse. Sometimes when we are still immature, still carrying unresolved wounds, or still unable to handle responsibility, Allah creates distance not as punishment, but as preparation. He removes what we want now so that we can grow into the people who are capable of sustaining it later. Psychologically, separation forces you to confront yourself. When the other person is gone, there are no distractions left. You are left alone with your thoughts, your patterns, your flaws, and that can be painful. But it is also an opportunity for transformation. Many people only begin to heal their insecurities, strengthen their faith, or build their character after they have experienced loss. Without separation, those lessons might never have been learned. In this sense, distance is a mirror. It shows you who you are without the comfort of another person holding you up. And when you use that time wisely, you come out stronger, more grounded, and more prepared for reunion. Philosophically, separation also teaches us about the nature of attachment. Human beings tend to cling too tightly to what they love, forgetting that ultimately everything belongs to Allah. By taking away someone temporarily, Allah reminds you they are mine first before they are yours. He is teaching you not to idolize the gift, but to worship the giver. And once your heart realigns, once you stop seeing your partner as the source of your happiness and recognize Allah as the source, only then are you ready to receive that person back in a healthier, purer way. Sometimes separation is also about timing. Perhaps you both still had journeys to complete on your own. Maybe there were experiences, struggles, or growth that each of you needed independently before you could truly come together. If Allah had reunited you too soon, you may not have been ready to carry the blessing. Just as fruit must ripen before it is eaten, love must mature before it can endure. Allah, in His wisdom, allows the ripening to happen in the soil of separation. Now, let's be honest. During that season of distance, the pain feels unbearable. You might wonder if you'll ever smile again, if you'll ever feel whole again. But the truth is, those very struggles are shaping you. Every tear shed in loneliness becomes a lesson in resilience. Every prayer whispered in longing becomes a seed of faith. And all of it is building the foundation for a stronger union when the time is right. The Prophet himself experienced separation. He lost loved ones, faced rejection, and endured isolation. Yet every loss carried a lesson. Every separation paved the way for a greater reunion, whether in this world or the next. In the same way, your temporary distance is not meaningless. It is Allah's classroom. And if you pay attention, you will graduate with wisdom that will make you more capable of loving, giving, and sustaining when He brings your partner back. So do not despise the distance, do not curse the silence, embrace the growth it forces upon you, because the truth is, reunion without preparation is fragile, but reunion after growth is powerful, and Allah only wants to give you the latter. So reflect deeply. Are you using your season of separation to become bitter, or to become better? Because the way you use this time will determine the quality of the reunion when Allah finally writes it into your life. When reunion finally happens, when Allah opens the door and allows two hearts to come back together, it is not just a moment of relief, it is a trust. Too often, people think of reunion as the end of the story, as if the whole journey was simply about getting back what was lost. But in truth, reunion is not the finish line. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one that demands gratitude, responsibility, and wisdom. One of the most dangerous mistakes people make after reunion is to slip into complacency. They think, now that they're back, everything will be fine. But love doesn't thrive on autopilot. A relationship that Allah reunites requires just as much nurturing, if not more, than before. Why? Because now you are entrusted with something fragile, something that was once taken from you and then restored. That makes it all the more sacred. Gratitude must be your first response. Gratitude not only to Allah for reuniting you, but gratitude to the person for choosing to step back into your life. Gratitude transforms how you behave. It makes you kinder, gentler, more careful with your words and actions. When you see reunion as a gift, you treat it with respect. You don't take it for granted. You don't let pride or ego poison it. Instead, you wake up each day remembering Allah could have left us apart, but He chose to bring us back. That thought alone should humble you into protecting the bond. Psychologically, gratitude also rewires the mind. Studies show that grateful people are more resilient, more positive, more capable of handling challenges. In the context of reunion, this means that when difficulties arise, and they will, you don't immediately fall back into fear or insecurity. Instead, you anchor yourself in the memory of Allah's favor and remind yourself, if He brought us back together once, He can help us sustain it now. Gratitude becomes the fuel that steadies you when storms come. At the same time, reunion calls for responsibility. Many separations happen because of immaturity, miscommunication, or neglect. If those lessons are not carried into the new chapter, the cycle will simply repeat. That is why Allah often allows a period of distance first, so that by the time you are reunited, you are more aware of your own flaws, more conscious of what needs to change, and more committed to doing things differently. Reunion is not an invitation to slip back into old habits. It is an invitation to build something stronger than before. Philosophically, reunion also points us to a higher reality. Every coming together in this life is a small reflection of the ultimate reunion in the hereafter. When you taste the sweetness of being restored to someone you love, it is a reminder of the far greater sweetness of being restored to loved ones in Jannah. In that sense, your earthly reunion is not just about romance or companionship. It is a signpost pointing you toward eternity. It reminds you that relationships are meant to be nurtured with righteousness, because only righteous love survives beyond this world. So when Allah reunites you, see it as both a gift and a test. A gift because He heard your prayers and healed your heart. A test because now He will watch how you handle it. Will you maintain gratitude, humility, and patience, or will you let ego and neglect destroy what He so mercifully restored? Remember this, reunion is not about celebrating that the wait is over. It is about honoring what begins now. It is about protecting the bond, cherishing the person, and living every day with the awareness that Allah could have chosen otherwise. So here is the question to carry with you. If Allah reunites you with the one you love, will you simply rejoice at their return, or will you rise to the responsibility of proving worthy of the gift? Because in the end, it is not reunion itself that matters most, but what you do with it once it is in your hands.